Welcome to the Savage Worlds GM Hangout, sponsored by Roll20, the world's Roll20.net, the world's largest role-playing tabletop. Tonight's topic, characters. We're going to dive deep into everything from optimizing to creating to advancing. And we'll sprinkle a little Halloween goodness in there with some examples of maybe classic movie monsters. So, here to discuss it, as always, Jib, the old man Tryon.
Characters? We don't need no stinking characters, man.
Dave Fezzik, the rules made with Scott.
I said you are a character, not that you have character.
And Chris, the Savage Mommy Fox.
Oh, that's totally
Ooh, burn.
So, let's talk character. I think one of the things that kind of spurs this discussion on tends to be the criticism that people hear a lot of Savage Worlds as they're all the same because there's no feat system, there's no class system in Savage Worlds. You get a lot of characters are all the same. So let's start there.
No, they're not. Discussion over.
Stop saying it or I will cut you.
All right, well, that was definitive, decisive, and quick.
You're wrong. So. You're wrong, and your face is stupid. So you know.
Well, it's easy to set apart characters in like D20, Pathfinder. I
really,
kind of understand.
Really? Okay, let's explore that for a second. Okay, let's talk about wizards for a second. Okay, out of the hundreds of spells in the freaking book, how many do people actually use? 10. Get 10 people to create 10 different fucking wizards, and I guarantee you 9 of their fucking spells will be identical.
Not only that, but at each breakpoint in level, they'll have the same number of spells that they all have access to. They'll have the same armor class, the same to hit. All those bonuses that you think make your character so unique and so special, every other rogue or wizard or fighter at your level has the exact same stats, with maybe a +1 or a +2 from your core stats that change it. What the hell, man?
Add into that. Okay, I am not saying that D&D and Pathfinder are bad games. I'm not. I run a D&D campaign. I enjoy it. Okay, you can say that, Dave. Rock on. Knock yourself out. But what I am saying is quit making assertions about something that is patently untrue. Okay, here's the thing about D&D and Pathfinder that drives me absolutely berserk. What is the optimal build for fill in the blank? This is, your idea of role playing.
Right.
Okay?
Well, that's
How about you make the character that fits an idea that you had, rather than try to be the most powerful character at that thing?
Because then you don't get to kill that shit and take its stuff.
So I'm going to actually quote a new person who's been playing with us on Friday nights now. And this was something that she brought up when watching the last couple sessions of the campaign we're closing out before starting something new. She said that the characters actually come alive because they're more than a record sheet. That in the game that we're playing, we could play the entire session without ever actually pulling up a character sheet because those characters have a personality. They have all those things that make them a character that have nothing to do with the rules of the game. And that, I think, is so much more important, especially when people start saying they're all the same. Well, I'll bet those same people, if they stop and analyze, their Pathfinder characters, all those mechanically are pretty much the same. Every rogue you've ever had has the same bonuses and penalties and the same skills because that's all they can have. But once you get past that and you start actually having a character, something that comes off that page, walks around, has a personality, and makes choices, That's what's going to set that apart. Even beyond the mechanics, where Savage Worlds decimates the other systems, and then it's a point-buy system. I can literally buy any combination I want.
Right, and I think this is really what I want to drive home. With other systems in Savage Worlds, you get the appearance or the illusion of diversity, wide diversity in characters, because you have so many different classes and feats that go along with them that quote unquote make them special. Those are mechanical issues, and we've said it before, and we'll say it again. The foundational design of Savage Worlds just deals with the rules. It forces you to bring the creativity. So I would say that what makes Savage Worlds characters different is the player playing the character.
Exactly.
And the role playing almost becomes a trapping effect for character creation.
As we've said many times, Savage Worlds as a game is concerned about the impact of a thing on the game. What it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, what it smells like, what it tastes like, that is your problem. And that is totally food for your creativity.
Right. So let's use an example. Let's just use an example here real quickly. A lot of people who are new to Savage Worlds will see the Bloodthirsty Hindrance and go, okay, I'm going to take the Bloodthirsty Hindrance. Now I'm Killy McKiller from Killerton. And I never back down. I don't take any prisoners. I bash everything to a pulp. Kill, 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 kill. Okay? That's not wrong, but
It's not wrong.
How
It's
about-
one way to look at it.
But how about a more evolved character who has a orcs killed my family, and now I have bloodthirsty orc, where I lose my shit because I have a character background that says my family was killed by orcs in front of me, and I spent 12 years as an orc slave in an orc camp until I was rescued, and I vowed that I would kill every orc I ever see.
I know that character. I had that character in a game.
All done in Savage
No,
Worlds.
that's great.
All done
No,
in Savage
it didn't
Worlds.
happen to be a second.
Yeah, all done in Savage Worlds with the application of one hindrance.
I took it a step
Right.
further with one of my most recent characters, and I took Pacifist Minor, where I could not actively throw a punch in anger at anyone. I could defend myself and defend those I care about, but I could not throw a punch or attack somebody in anger. And then I took Bloodthirsty the Undead. And the first time we came across a supernatural being, my character grabbed a switchblade knife and just pinned this thing to the ground and stabbed it repeatedly until he was covered in little bits and pieces of gore and blood dripping off of him. And the rest of the party's just looking at him in total horror and fright. And he's the most mild-mannered guy on the street, you know, almost bumbling idiot to a certain extent when it comes to physicality anywhere else, but just became a monster when facing off against the undead.
So, exactly. So what we're saying is character concept is king in Savage Worlds. Now, I also want to talk about one other thing, too, in advancement, in relation to advancement. Savage Worlds and most GMs do not require a in-game experience or reason for you to suddenly gain the two-fisted edge. We don't care.
Yeah, I don't. Like, okay, you want two-fisted? Cool. Carrot rock on with that.
Yep, take it. Take it.
You don't have to validate. You don't have to validate why you got it.
Yeah, you don't
Got
need
it.
to tell me why you bought it.
You got
I
it, you
assumed
got it.
that in the downtime that we're not covering in-game that you were learning how to do a thing. Okay?
Now, I've also seen this happen too. For the players who are very character oriented, very role-playing oriented, they will get the 3 advances and have not spent them because they can't make that choice, or it doesn't seem like the appropriate amount of character development has happened in story.
I had that problem. I had that problem with my work, or with my dead end character, trying to figure out as a 12-year-old what would make sense for me to take, and I was always a couple of advances behind, just because I couldn't figure out what I wanted.
There's also a certain aspect of it that, like Jim was saying, in Savage Worlds, I don't necessarily feel like I'm behind the power curve if I miss 1 or 2 advances. You can literally miss whole sessions where you didn't get any XP, and you don't fall off the curve. You're not suddenly a detriment to the party's power level when the GM has to, figure out what monsters you can hit because of your power differential. But the other aspect of it is that Savage Worlds allows you to have those moments where you get so caught up in the role play that you maybe don't pick up the dice for several sessions. And there's a lot of games out there that if you don't pick up the dice and engage in combat, your character doesn't grow. Yeah, you can absolutely have a no combat session in Pathfinder or in D&D, but your character's not going to gain anything unless the GM just decides that he's going to grant you XP outside of what the rules allow for, where you gain XP by killing shit. In Savage Worlds, I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to gain XP because I'm supposed to gain XP every time you play.
Now, I will say that 5th edition D&D does provide an alternate way to go about doing XP. It's got a milestone mechanic where basically you set waypoints, and when you reach these waypoints, you get, you level. You advance. You level up. Which I like better personally. I tend to run most games that way anyway.
7C has a personal milestone as well as like a party milestone, and when your character has achieved that goal that you personally set up, you and the GM have agreed what level of advancement you're going to get from that. I think it's an interesting concept, but I don't necessarily know mechanically that it works with Savage Worlds other than just a really good GM who awards XP.
I think there's even something you could do for Savage Worlds. It's not rules is written, but if it fits the style of your campaign and it's a very tight-knit group that is functioning as like a 5-man band, or it's a group-style story, just let the players know. I'll let you know when you advance. Wait for a while and just go, okay, everybody just went from novice to seasoned. Go ahead and spend your advances instead of worrying about doling out XP. Because if your goal is to keep them all kind of on the same path at the same time, it's easier that way in case somebody misses a session.
And what I've been known to do is do 3-2, 3-2, 3-2. So every other session, they're getting an advance.
Yeah, I personally tend to go 5 every session.
I don't award XP every session. It's been 3 sessions. Advance. Don't advance.
Yep.
That's more the direction I've been leaning in. When I award XP, it'll be bigger chunks, but it's not at the end of every single session. Because frankly, I don't like the whole drip feed. Oh well, okay, well you guys only achieved 1 XP or 2 XP worth of stuff in the session. No, we're gonna play until a notable something has happened, and then I'm just gonna award a chunk, and that chunk might be 2 full advances all at once.
Right, so you can always award stories, like Jim was saying, in Savage Worlds, along milestones or story points in your campaign.
Now, I have to be completely honest here, okay? I don't do that because I think it's a better way of doing it. I do it because I'm lazy.
Yes.
I don't like doing the bookkeeping of keeping up with how many XP I'm awarding, how many XP should I award. Don't care.
I'm sorry. That's the reason all of us play Savage Worlds at this point. It's so low prep, I don't have to deal with that shit.
I just like, oh, okay, yeah, do a thing. Go ahead. Carry on.
You're a grown-ass man at a time.
It's pure laziness on my part because I don't want to be bothered with it. That's not what the game is about to me, so I'm not interested in it. Other people who are interested in that kind of detail, rock on, enjoy. It's not what I'm after.
Here's the thing with Savage Worlds that I like that isn't obviously apparent. It really doesn't matter. You get to a point where even when it comes down to gaming the system, where I really don't care if I get XP this session or not, because it's not having a huge impact on gameplay. Yeah. I could create a novice character and play that novice character through the entire campaign with maybe 1 or 2 advances and feel not cheated.
Well, and here's an interesting aspect of it. The characters are all the same. If I were to create a rogue, my rogue would probably start with maybe 9 skills. I would want to have, stealth and lock picking and pickpockets, and I would go a very skill heavy route with the character. Jared might roll up a rogue who has 2-fisted, stealth, and a D12 in fighting, so that he can just drive a dagger and a short sword through your back. While Jib comes in with the rapier Mongaush dual wield, fencer type rogue who has half the skills that I have. All 3 of these are all novice characters, all built with the same number of points, and all vastly different before we even wrap a personality around them mechanically. All 3 of us in D&D, sitting down with a rogue, are going to have the exact same cookie cutter character. And then we're
within 5% plus or minus, within plus or minus 5%. And I say plus or minus 5% because it's a D20 based game that has, 1 plus 1 is 5%.
Yeah. And then you're also going to have, I think they still have a decent skill list that you can pick and choose from a little bit, but even that is, still we're going to.
Now that is not to say that we could not sit down and each of us make a rogue in D&D or Pathfinder and make 3 very different characters. Absolutely, we could absolutely do that. But the majority of the things that they do in the course of gameplay are combat related, and at that moment, they're all going to be pretty much the same.
Savage
now, I know that the D&D and Pathfinder fans are going to jump up and down and scream and yell and tell me I'm wrong, and that's fine. That's your experience.
Yep.
Well, and the other thing too is I could build a rogue with very little combat skill.
Sure.
Make him a face character for all, social engineer.
Oh, absolutely.
Who happens to be excellent at pickpocket, and that's why he's a rogue.
If I was building a skill-based rogue, like Dave was talking about, I probably would do it a bit differently because the next question I want to answer is, what does he do? What is his crime that he does? What is the thing that he does? Is he a safecracker? Is he a burglar? Is he a pickpocket? Is he a confidence man? Is he what area of crime is his thing? And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm probably going to sprinkle in some other things too. Like if he's a confidence man, he might very well be an okay pickpocket. But he's not going to be the same level of pickpocket as if that's what I was making.
Yeah.
Is a pickpocket.
And that kind of all ties back together.
Because I can sprinkle those skills and attributes around how I want them.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into what both of you, what you and Jared have both said, comes back to concept needs to inform your character in Savage Worlds.
Right.
Big time.
Now let's talk about this real quick. Go ahead, Dave. I don't want you to lose the thought. Go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing to look at is take a look at fiction and let's look at the difficulty you would have in recreating certain fictional characters within the different rule sets. Look at the Three Musketeers. They're all three fighters. They all three have a different fighting style, but they're all three at carte blanche, first blush. They're all fighters. In Savage Worlds, though, you could vastly tweak those. One might have two-fisted, while another might have Florentine. They've got the secondary weapon, but they never actually strike with that offhand dagger. It's there purely for a defensive capacity. They look the same. They both draw a rapier and a dagger with the two hands, but one's never striking out with that dagger. The other is striking out with the dagger every single round. And this is, again, one of those places where, in Savage Worlds, there's just more depth to give them different stuff than there is in some of those other systems. Now, there are some systems out there that blow Savage Worlds away when it comes to that. GURPS is a great example where there is just a dearth of different things you can pick up in GURPS to make 1% differences between the characters, where they're extremely specialized or where they're just minor tweaks off of the main line. But there's 100 different differences between the characters. Neither ends of that spectrum are better, but it goes back to they're not cookie cutter copies the way they would be in something like D&D.
Right. Okay, so here's one thing I wanted to put forth as an idea to game masters and players alike for when you come to Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds is low prep. It's supposed to be fast, furious fun. Do not create a 2-page background for this fucking character. Don't. Please. Don't. Create a very strong personality for the character as a concept. Create a strong concept and a strong personality for the character, but let their background evolve organically and be informed by spur-of-the-moment things that happen during the game. That way you're not, because here's what happens. Shut up. Here's what happens. When you come to the game and go, well, I'm the legal heir to the throne, but I was raised by wolves, and blah, 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 blah. You've written this entire character's story arc. Great. That's not the story that we're getting together to play and tell. Everybody brings parts of that story. How about just, I was raised by wolves? Let that be your concept, and then take it from there. Or
advances in when you buy the rich edge or the noble edge, just add in, I am also the heir to the throne, but I just discovered that I'm the heir to the throne.
Exactly.
I was raised by wolves.
This is a very important thing that you just said there, and you totally blew by it because we would do it automatically. But it's the most important part of what you just said. And I just discovered this thing. I didn't know that before. I just learned that. Now that is a thing for you to play with, and it matters. And now it's got depth, and it's got wheels, and it's got impact in the game. Okay. When people write big, long, voluminous backstories, they want to make their character awesome out of the gate. Okay? Okay, I get that. I get it. You want to be awesome. Everybody wants to be awesome. Guess what? You are the main character in this story. 1 of 4, 1 of 5, 1 of 6, whatever. Okay? You are that special. You are that awesome. You are that special snowflake. 1 of 6. Okay? You matter that much. Your character matters that much already. You don't have to do anything else to do that. You are the main character. Carry on.
Well, and
give that main character somewhere to grow to.
right, don't paint yourself in a corner before you ever start play with who you're all about and everything. No. When you start at novice, you're beginning your adventuring story and life. There's where you start. What I will always tell players in a game, what the hardest thing to communicate to a new player in Savage Worlds is, okay, listen, I want a very strong concept. Give me a very strong concept for a character that would exist in this world that we're creating, because we've talked about the setting. Give me a strong concept. And by concept, I mean kind of have an idea where you want the character to be. Concept could be 3 words. Elderly Walmart greeter. Teenage pizza delivery driver. Middle-aged soccer mom. Those are good starting points for a concept. Once you have the concept, create a 1 or 2 sentence phrase that you can hand to an actor auditioning for the role of that character, to where they can read it and go, got it. Where are my lines? Got it. And can act out that character. So an example may be, well, I kind of want to build a tank fighty guy for this adventure. Or let's say we're gonna do a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen type style pulp story, and you're gonna create the circus strongman, because in this one we recruit from the circus. So there's a special agency put together, James Bondy, 1940s pulp, but they recruit from circus folk. So that's the kind of the scope at the session 0. So you go, okay, I'm gonna play the bare knuckle pugilist strongman. And so I'm Russian, I'm 6 feet tall, I'm bald, but I have the bar handle mustache. Kind of get an idea of what I look like. Then go, okay, here's my concept. Here's what I'm writing down for my description. Instead of a 2-page background, I'm going to write 2 sentences. And one says, Ivan Skovanov loves 2 things in life: vodka and fighting. Done. That's everything I need to know about that character's personality in 1 sentence.
Right. I'm going to steal a concept from Fate. When you define a character in Fate, you create 5 aspects. And an aspect is a simple phrase that defines a thing. Okay? So I'm going to take Ivan. I'm going to take Jared's example. Ivan, his high concept is, I am the strongest man in the room. Anywhere. I am the strongest man in the room. Got that. Awesome. But I have a trouble. I love vodka. Okay, that's a trouble. The next 3 have to do with 2 things. 1, where you started. It is a statement about the first adventure you had when you left home. I love to fight. Okay, done. The next 2 have to do with something about the people you're with, and they connect you to them. Dave's circus acrobat rogue. We met in the circus, traveling through, the road between Moscow and St. Petersburg, and I saved his life. Ta-da! Done. Chris's character, whoever he is, I don't know yet, bailed me out of a bad situation. We now have things. We have a single statement that says who I am. We have a thing that says this is a problem for me. We have a thing that says this is where I got my start. And we have 2 things that connect me to other characters. I'm done. I have an entire character.
Mm-hmm. The interesting aspect here is it's a very different thing than what creative literature will tell you to do when creating a character. But that's because the literature out there about how to create characters is about how to create a character for a story. And you're not writing a goddamn story. Stop it. I just had this conversation earlier this week with a friend. They're a big fan fiction writer. They love to write fan fiction, taking characters from shows and putting them into situations, or taking situations from shows and putting other characters into them. And this person is amazingly creative, loves to create this stuff on the fly, but is a totalitarian, everything is mine, I must have control. That's not what we're doing here. You are sitting down at that table to cooperatively craft a story through the game with the other 5 or 6 people sitting at the table, and the dice get to matter every time the 5 or 6 of you disagree. But at the end of the day, it's this cooperative thing. Your character should not be different from that. If we sit down and my character's got this full backstory written up, I have obligated all of you to plot hooks and things that deal with this 2-3 page manual on who my character used to be. And my character better have the elderly hindrance to verify that I've had time for all of that to have happened to them. Otherwise, I'm a fresh-faced 15-year-old. I have not accomplished everything in the galaxy like a certain unnamed Mary Sue that Scott likes to bash on recently. That character needs to have lots of little things that we can go with. But if we're going to look at Jared's Ivan character here, go the full Fezzik. Your character is the strongest man in the room. He has a problem with vodka, but he's a big cuddly teddy bear. You can't make him mad. And play that character. Throw something in there that's, get 1 or 2 things that make perfect sense, that beat the trope for the character, and then the one thing that's completely 90 or 180 degrees off. Those concepts should be your guiding light, and everything else should come out of play with your other players at the table.
So let's talk about taking the concept of Ivan through Savage Worlds character creation, because we've got a strong concept with Ivan. We've got a game of 1940s, circus 007s, basically. So there's a concept. So I'm going to sit down. I'm going to create Ivan using Savage Worlds character creation process. Now, I know we've said it before, but it bears repeating. The order in the Savage Worlds character creation summary is out of order, for it's not conducive to concept-driven character creation. Here's why. It focuses on attributes first, and then focuses on edges or skills, and then focuses on hindrances. Not conducive to heavily character concept-driven creation. So, flip the script. The first thing you start with, number 1, concept. So we've done that. We've written out this 1-sentence concept. We have a clear idea who Ivan is and what Ivan's about. Second, I now pick hindrances first. I want to know what this character's reasonable flaws are. So, he's the strongest man in the room. Maybe he's overconfident.
Stubborn.
Stubborn may be one. If he's a gregarious, if I want to play him more Russian, slap people on the back, gregarious, laugh at everything, I'm not going to take the mean hindrance. I'm not going to take the outsider hindrance. What I may take, maybe, is the habit major hindrance, vodka.
I would be careful whether choosing major or minor in this regard based on the game. But absolutely, I think with the concept we've presented, you have to take habit vodka. Whether it's major or minor, it should be based on the game.
Yeah. So there we've got a character optimized. So let's say we go with overconfident, because, well, it's always fun to play an overconfident character. We can kind of come at the vodka in another way. So let's talk about that for just a second. Instead of taking it as a hindrance, let's flip it over as an edge and take the weird edge, liquid courage, which makes me stronger the more vodka I drink, but
drink the vodka.
Also makes me more clumsy and drunk if I imbibe too much.
See, now if we're going to do that, I'm going to throw out, if he's the gregarious drunkard occasionally, Big Mouth makes the most sense for this character.
Yes.
Absolutely. He's the guy that stands in the corner of the room and says the most awkward thing at the most awkward moment in a booming voice that the room can hear.
Yeah, has no mental filter. No mental filter, just says what he thinks. And why not tell a secret? There's nothing anybody can do about it. Once they know what the secret is, we're still so big and bad, we're going to beat them all anyways. Yeah, so overconfident and Big Mouth work really well together, leaving one minor hindrance. Here's what I would do. I would give him a phobia. Because there's nothing more fun than a big, gregarious, oh, I'm so strong, mouse, and losing his shit.
Mice, toads, something of that nature.
Yep. So then we move into, from there, we go from there to edges. And we want to figure out what edges that Ivan should have. We've already decided. Brawny, definitely.
Chris is like on the spot. This
bam.
is
Bam, Brawny. Maybe two-fisted would work well for this character.
Why? Why would it be two-fisted?
Bare knuckle, kind of like the strongman and a bare knuckle pugilist.
I understand.
So he can throw.
I understand there's a pugilist. Why necessarily two-fisted? Everybody wants to go to two-fisted. Why?
Well, because you get two attacks around.
Concept, not game.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he's the big gregarious guy, he's doing that single pile driver punch that just ends you. That one big ham hock. So I would say brawler, where he gets that bonus damage on the end of that big fist, that big ham fist.
Okay, so maybe bruiser as well. Once we get up to
once you get
brawler.
there,
I like it better. I think it fits the concept of the character better.
Yeah, so Brawny and Brawler.
Okay, awesome. So that takes care of two edges, right?
Well, I was going to say, if we spend all of those hindrance points and the human edge, I would suggest throwing in martial artist. That's what he is. He's a pugilist. He's a trained fighter. He has spent that time. He knows how to do damage with that fist.
Yep, that works. Now, I'm going to put a little sidebar in here because this is a Savage Daddy issue. Whenever I build characters, I take the one free human edge at character creation, but I do not spend my hindrance points on edges because edges are too easy to get with an advance later. I pump that shit into raising attributes, a die type. So I can have Ivan be starting novice with a D12 strength if I want to. Probably going to go more like a D10, give him D10 vigor, D10 strength by saving those points for attribute increases over edges. That's just that's how I do it.
Savage Daddy note.
Yeah, that's just a note, Savage Daddy note. Otherwise,
that's how Daddy rolls.
Nothing wrong whatsoever with creating it with spending all the hindrance points is on edges. Understand that you can also spend them on skill points or attribute die type increases.
And this is a character where I would probably consider overspending on the skill points a little bit. I probably would not buy his agility beyond a D8. No. I would probably pay the bonus points to bring fighting up from there so that I had those points to sack into vigor and into strength instead, because this character needs to be that big ham fist, but I don't need him to be overly agile.
Right, so I would probably go for this character, building it by concept, nothing higher than a D6 agility. And no shooting skill. Here's the thing about Ivan. Ivan doesn't use guns. Ivan uses his fists.
He might have throwing because he's so strong he could pick something large up and throw it. But even that, it seems like it's a step out of the concept.
Right. And here's the thing: it's kind of a not written on paper, but evolves naturally out of the concept of the character that we have so far. It's not that he's not against picking up a gun and shooting somebody, but he's just never bothered trying it because, well, that's for wimpy, coward, yellow men to hit people from far away. The honorable thing is to step right up to them, dominate them, and beat the living shit out of them. That's how a man fights, not with these girly poo bullets. So
you might be more benign about it than that, and say, I've just never felt the need to use guns. Guns are for little men to use.
See, and that's more the angle I think the gregarious character we're building is. I think we're getting a little touch of the savage daddy in this character.
All right, maybe a little guilty. So, and here's the reason you want to pick the edges first. And I know if you're new to the Savage Worlds, it's going to be, well, wait, shouldn't I know what the attributes and stuff are first? Yes, that's why you want to pick your edges first so you know what to buy in skills and attributes or other edges.
Yeah, now knowing that you've taken Brawler, you know you're required to have that D8 strength. You know, that carries with it that caveat. So having to buy your trait, then buy the edges that fit your traits doesn't work as well as buying the edges and then buy the traits to support those.
Yeah, and I think it actually, if you really think about it, it speeds things up because you know exactly what skills and attributes you need to have.
And I think at the end of the day, the advanced players that I've played with, that's the way they build a character in their head. They are thinking, well, this character is going to dual wield, so I need him to have two-fisted and ambidexterity. What are the requirements to get those? And then paying for that in their trait points. You'll see that in your more advanced Savage Worlds player. They're experienced enough with the system to start thinking, what are the requirements on the edges I want when they're laying out their stats?
Right. So let's go to attributes. So, and here's one of the reasons that I was saying earlier that I wouldn't spend all the edges so I can get strength up. I don't want Ivan to have a smarts D4 as a sacrificial way to get him to strength higher than a D6. That's what I'm saying. I will sometimes save the edges. But that being said, so what do we know about Ivan? Ivan is strong and probably very hardy. Based on the concept we have. Is he a smart guy? Not so much.
He might be smarter than you think, though.
Right, yes. But he's not a drooling.
Yes. He's not the drooling idiot, and he's not a rocket scientist, but he could surprise you in either direction based on the way you decide to take it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, D6s across the board? For attributes?
Well, we've got to get that strength to a D8 if we want him to have Brawler.
So if we didn't sacrifice edges, we spent all the edges, then what comes down?
Personally, and I know this may not be a popular idea, I might sack agility right out the gate.
He's a little muscle-bound, kind of like...
He's the big lumbering oaf at first. He hasn't learned to move with his size in that manner, so he's not overly agile. You know, he doesn't have the cat-like reflexes to walk across the rope bridge. You guys get to the rope bridge, and he's looking at it kind of, ooh, was this hold the Ivan?
I think this skinny little rope will hold Ivan.
I think it's a very good way to go, actually. So, yeah, agility D4, strength D8, everything else a D6. Mm-hmm. And for those who play the home game, that's everything starts at a D4. We spend 1 point per die type. You get 5 points total to adjust die types.
And the interesting thing is, martial artist requires a D6 in fighting, which simply means we're spending 3 points just to get there by sacking that agility down. But I don't see that necessarily as a bad thing. And yes, there's this whole concept of he starts out, he's the best fighter there is. Not necessarily. He's the best fighter he's ever run into. And part of that is because he wrecks people with that D8 plus a D6 in damage every time he punches them. Right. And then +2 for Brawler. This guy's doing a monstrous amount of damage. He doesn't need to hit often. He just needs to hit once. And that's all he's needed up till now.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. Even though fighting is linked to agility as its attribute, and every die type in the skill over the attribute costs you 2 instead of 1 points, I'm okay with spending those points on fighting because this is what he's been doing day in and day out because, remember, he loves to fight. He's been doing nothing but brawling and scrapping since he was 8 years old.
Oh, see, I don't know if I agree there. I think
no?
You buy it up to the D6, maybe a D8, but at that point, I would see Ivan buying into things like persuasion and gambling. Because more than likely, if he's a gregarious drunk, some of these fights are happening at bars, and he's being paid for putting down this guy who he bet a bunch of money that after 5 shots of vodka, he could still take you and your friends.
Okay. So Dave takes the character interesting in an interesting light. I don't disagree. Okay, so fighting D8.
I referenced Fezzik earlier. That was the whole character arc. Is that his friend got him into fights, and he would fight 5-10 men at a time, and he was just the big guy in the room that could take them all on.
Makes sense. So fighting D8. So out of the 15 points in an agility D4, how many points do we burn to get to fighting D8?
5 of them.
Yeah, 5 points.
5. So that's a third of the skill points. Makes sense. I would say give him streetwise. Give him streetwise at least a D6.
For carousing.
Yep. Gambling. Maybe a D4.
I hate to say it, but you got to give him some notice.
Probably has a little notice, yeah.
Well, like
I know that's a popular choice with Jared, but probably has a little notice.
Jared prefers the no-notice character because, and here's why: because in a group of 5 people, when you go make a notice roll, somebody else is gonna get that.
Everybody reaches for a D6 or a D8 because the whole party buys it.
Yeah, I don't need it. And when it relies on Jared's character totally to notice to avoid some shit, and he fails, well, that just makes it more fun. That
now,
just makes it more of an
interesting option would be also to buy taunt. But I would not buy this particular character intimidation out the gate.
No.
Again, that gregarious nature, he's not one to try to be imposing so much as he's going to taunt the little man.
Right.
Oh, you really think you're as good as the Ivan?
You hit like girl. Ha 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 ha. That would be the taunt. Did your mother pick out your outfit, comrade? Ha 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 ha. Kind of bullshit. Yeah, taunt. He's all taunt. So how many skills does Ivan have? How many skills does Ivan have? Throwing, and probably like a D6. I'll spend some extra points to overcome the D4 agility. But throwing, fighting, streetwise, and taunt. I gotta tell you, I'm in love. Well, notice. I'm in love with the 4-skill, 5-skill character. I really am, because it's a very customized character as far as the mechanics go, but you still have all the wide expanse and freedom of role play with the character, where it doesn't necessarily have a disconnect.
Well, and there again, this character takes a character that's only got 4 or 5 skills on the page takes advantage of a major part of Savage Worlds. A D6 wild die and the unskilled roll for everything they didn't buy.
Right. And that would be Ivan. That's pretty much Ivan. The liquid courage. The liquid courage allows him to, I believe, ignore like 1 level of wound penalties, or it just increases his vigor and toughness. Increases his vigor and toughness. Yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing with the character is, even if you were to go so far as gear, what does this character maybe buy? He buys a couple of barbells to show off at the circus that he's the big strong man. He's got the tiger print loincloth that he wears. because
Right.
he's dressed. You can absolutely buy all his gear for well under the 500, and then you have him walk into the first bar as a player character and drop that stack of $300-400 on the bar and bet any man in the bar that he can take him, and you double or triple your money right out the gate.
Right. Yeah, I picture Ivan as the nameless character in the first Indiana Jones movie that's sitting there across from Carol Ravencroft drinking shots and putting them down, except he's not all woozy. He's just sitting there going like this and smiling at her. And there's like 20 shot glasses on each side of the table. Yeah. That's the Ivan character I picture. Or like right in the middle of a fight, like, hold on. This sits there, just like drains a flask, puts it back, like, all right, let's go. So, I mean, and then along those lines, too, we could talk about creating like a super acrobat thief type character. The character is the high wire expert, whatever. But, I mean, I think that really, I think that covers all the bases with creating a strong character from concept as an example.
Well, and the crux goes back to something that we talked about a few minutes ago, is when you're creating that character and you have that moment where you go, well, I really wanted to have two-fisted. Do what Jib did. Why? Stop, pull yourself back and look at the concept. We had a player in my my Monday night game where we're doing Firefly who ran into an issue with this when they created the character. And I looked over and they had like 9 skills or more laid out on the character sheet because they had bought a lot of little stuff that they felt were going to be useful in the game. But when I challenged them to come up with, why does your character have that skill with their concept, there was a lot of rationalization. But when they pulled back away from rationalization and started talking about what would the character actually have developed into, they were able to make some really quick modifications that trimmed that down from 9 skills to 7 and left the character a lot more robust than it was at 9 skills. But also, I believe they removed 1 skill entirely and replaced it to get there. It wasn't just a situation where, trim it and bump some other stuff up. I believe there was a complete skill exchange that happened because that player realized, oh, well, wait a minute, no, this other skill fits the concept so much better in this particular case when you look at it from the concept down rather than from the mechanics up.
Right. Oh, and the one caveat, in case we did not mention it, and I don't think we did, avoid the urge to take edge names and hindrance names literally. Understand that it's just the name, a title of something. It's not the thing. So, like we were talking about earlier, bloodthirsty against orcs. Bloodthirsty doesn't mean you just kill everything in sight. It can mean that if you want it to mean that, but you can also finesse it. The other thing I would say, of a more advanced tip, instead of taking quirk, which is just a narrative quirk, go ahead and take it as habit minor so it has a mechanical effect on the game. So if you're the character that is constantly chewing gum, instead of taking constantly chews gum as a quirk, take it as a minor habit because your constant little habit annoys everybody around you.
It annoys everyone that you're stopping to pull gum out or you're sticking it on the walls or whatever. A great example of this is a character from the movie Fury. John Barenthal was playing a tanker who was a dip chewer. And it was right in the script that he had a little corner of the tank where he would spit his chaw every so often, and every take he's seen spitting chaw in this same spot in the tank. The other actors were so disgusted by this, they actually had banded together, tried to get him offset, tried to maybe see if they could bring in another actor for it, until they realized, no, he was actually doing something that was in the script as part of the character. But it had such an impact. It wasn't just a quirk about his character, but they found that so disgusting, so disturbing, they actually tried to have him removed from the cast. take a look at what you can do with your quirk to have it be more than just, my character always talks with himself in the third person. Well, that's pretty freaking annoying.
Right?
You have no idea.
Dave does not understand.
If you've never experienced it, you have no idea.
Anything to add?
Infuriating.
Apparently, I'm having a pet peeve here.
I just nothing to say. Oh my god, I don't know that I could deal with that. I mean, even like people in movies and things who do that, it just raises my hackles.
Well, here's what you can do in honor of Chris. If you create a character in a modern setting, in honor of the Savage Mommy here on the podcast, if you listen to it for any length of time, create a character who is constantly looking at their cell phone as a minor habit, and it gives them a -1 charisma.
Oh Jesus!
They're constantly checking their phone as a minor habit.
And they have them do it during the game.
Right.
Really piss me off.
Yeah, then bring that to Chris's table, and right in the middle of your role play, LARP it a little bit by pulling your device out and looking at it, and going, "You need to put that away, dude."
Have it minor addicted to tech,
Yeah.
And then when your character does it, pantomime it by reaching over, grabbing your phone, and checking a text in front of Chris.
Yeah, and then go. That's what my character would do.
Then not only when Chris tries to shut you down, you don't go, "Hey, motherfucker, I'm role playing my hindrance.
I'd like my penny.
I would need a Benny for that if you don't mind."
I'm sorry if any of your players ever watch this, Chris.
And you better buy that shit off quick.
I'm sorry if any of your players ever watch this, Chris.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a whole table full of people with quirk addicted to tech.
Well, and no, I mean it's also a good quirk role play wise. It does give your GM something to mess with you with, like, "Hey, why don't you give me a notice roll to -2? What? We're just crossing the street. Yeah, exactly. But your face is in your phone. So go ahead and give me that notice roll. Oh shit! You don't see the semi barreling down on you. Everybody else does. You don't see the semi barreling down on you.
Time for an agility roll. -2.
There you go. So, is there anything else anybody wants to touch base on, or we're talking about character development, optimization, character creation, advancement? Any rock that we've left unturned?
No, not really.
Don't overlook non-combat edges. This is actually something I just recently done to Jared. It was amazingly fun. We played in a very modern vampire hunter game, and my character took 2 contacts. I took contact Catholic Church and contact local police department. Every time we had to get rid of a body, I had a contact for that. Every time I needed an area cordoned off, I could call up the Catholic Church and have them hold some special event and put in all the appropriate paperwork. And the papacy has the power behind it to have an entire block of a city shut down for a day for a festival or something that doesn't actually end up happening. Those things, yes, they require you to also buy up your persuasion stat. They also require you to buy up that streetwise stat so you can get in contact with that person. Once you have those, it almost becomes an assumed thing that when you go through that contact, if it's one you're using consistently throughout the game, it almost becomes an assumed thing. Very minor stuff you're just going to get handed to you by the GM. There were times Jared didn't require a dice roll at all, and it was supremely impactful to the rest of the session that I was able to get my hands on a warrant, or I was able to get my hands on a half-hour window where there would be no police guarding this site so we could get in and out quickly. You get those little things that your character can modify with an edge that doesn't seem overly powerful, can make a big difference at the table in play.
Right, and I would say this is a GM with the contact thing. What he's supposed to do mechanically is make a streetwise roll to get in contact, then make a opposed persuasion roll. When he's asking for something that's not like I need $1 million, it just slows down gameplay to do that. So we would just role play it out, and if it felt right, sure, he got it. Now I would say this: having done that on more than one occasion where we didn't roll for anything, it's completely within the GM scope to put it back on Dave and have the cop call him and go, "Hey, I need a favor."
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's there again.
And you should.
And you should.
Yeah. Like, hey, listen, one of our highly decorated officers is out on psych leave. I think he's possessed. I need you to come by and investigate this, and I need you really to do me a solid and exercise this guy. He's got a wife and kids. He's got a 30-year distinguished career on the force. This is some bullshit. This is some of that bujo stuff that you guys deal with. I'm calling it a favor. And instant plot hook. Just boom. Same thing if it's a GM. If you see a character or player take connection, keep an eye on that as, hey, this is a possible mine for plot hooks in my game. So,
yeah, there's a lot of little things in the book like that. Beast Bond is another great one. You know, there's a lot of little places that Savage Worlds has these just excellent little nuggets that are buried away in that edge system. That if you mine that out, you can make that the cornerstone of your character, have no combat stats whatsoever, and affect every single combat thereafter with this thing, because your character has the contact and is constantly getting you ammunition, constantly getting you guns, constantly making sure the cops aren't going to show up in the middle of a firefight, even if you didn't secure everything. I mean, just being able to get law enforcement to turn a blind eye to the party is a huge boon to your party. And those things are buried in that edge system. That's a great place for character optimization when you start playing things like the Confidence Man, or, you know, the character that's got that other skill. You don't know where to put them. Drop them in Persuasion and pick up some of those non-combat or leadership edges.
Right. And then I'll just add this one tiny caveat from a GM perspective on character creation. Make sure that you honor, as a GM, you honor and respect the player's choice of the kind of character they want to do. Don't make, because sooner or later, and I see this in every time we play, where a character will present a concept. It's like, oh, you play the same thing every time. But this is our 5th session, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, let me guess, a D8 agility, fighting D8, acrobat, and ultra attractive. Okay, or blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're going to create the same kind of character again. Nothing wrong with challenging the player if you have that kind of relationship and trust. I think one of the things that you really need to communicate as a GM to players in Savage Worlds, or just the role-playing in general, is, hey, guys, I know you think I'm a dick GM. I get it. Trust me, I'm not out to kill your characters. Unless I am. And then I'm going to tell you I'm out to kill your characters. Just so you understand, that's the kind of game we're playing. I'm out to wreck your shit. But
I'm not out to kill your characters, but I'm out to kill your characters.
Right. So, I mean, if you're playing a horror game, so it doesn't apply to all the games I play. And in those games, I tell the players up front, hey, chance of survival, what did I drop off? There we go. Chance of survival, very minimal. So understand that. I'm going to come at you. I'm going to come at you hard. It's going to be a beat grind. But I'm just saying, honor their kind, help shepherd them along into a concept that fits. And Dave does a very good job at this, because he will ask everybody to tell him about their concepts in a session 0, and you'll get these. I have this really great concept. I'm going to play this. And you go, are you sure? Yeah, that sounds like an awesome concept, Player Z. Awesome concept. Okay, let's start creating the characters. Okay, let me know when you're done with your character creation. Hey, Player Z, I thought your concept was this. What the hell is this character doing with this? It doesn't seem to make sense to me based on, explain that to me. Not, no, you can't take this. No, this doesn't fit the concept. Hey, I'm going to need you to defend this choice rationally based on the concept you gave me. It doesn't really fit, does it? No. Okay, well, maybe you can think about taking it in this direction instead if you want to try to do that. I'm just saying, as a GM, respect your players' choices, help them along when you need to. And then once they've made that decision, make sure you challenge them. If they put down heroic or they put down loyal on their character sheet,
it needs to come up.
It is my job as a GM to challenge you. If you say I've taken loyal, I never leave a man behind, I go the extra mile for a friend, guess what? Oh, your high school sweetheart's been kidnapped by terrorists. They're asking for $1 million ransom, or they're going to kill her.
And extras work great for this because here's the thing: every player out there takes loyal, slaps it on the character sheet, and knows, well, I'm not leaving the fight if anybody else's character is involved in the fight. Okay, but now he's got loyal. Have his high school buddies show up in the scene, and he has to make sure he gets him out. Have that character have an old war buddy who happens to be on site that day when the fight breaks out, and he's not leaving till he's extracted that guy. But oh, by the way, the MacGuffin just got on that plane with the big bad, and he's about to take off. But all these guys over here still have to be defeated. Here's your choice: your hindrance and your war buddy, or the plot point that you were here to actually stop.
Here's my favorite. Go ahead and take heroic. Because in the nastiest crossfire firefight that I can create at the table, a little girl is going to wander into the middle of it carrying a teddy bear and stand in front of an oncoming bus. Chances are, if you try to save her, you're going to take mucho wounds from just stray bullets and shit flying around. But you chose heroic.
But Jared, my character is heroic. He's not stupid.
Well, I don't know. What's the definition?
You don't have to rescue the little girl. You don't have to save her.
No.
Fine. That's fine.
Right.
I mean, I got this Benny here for you if you do. But if you don't want it...
I've got a Benny here for you if you do, but if you don't, that's okay too. I'm sure there won't be any problems come out of that.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure.
Her mom's not going to show up on the evening news the next night decrying how the hero of the city didn't bother to help her little girl.
Right. I'm sure the people.
That never happened.
I'm sure the other people in your party aren't going to think any less of you for not trying to save the little girl.
Sure.
I'm sure when you go into a bar that you're used to frequenting, and a reporter splashed our hero ? And a picture of a little girl being run over by a bus while you're standing on the corner undercover. I'm sure when that gets plastered all over billboards and everything else, I'm sure when you walk in that local bar to get information, they're just going to give it to you, right? No, I don't think so.
Oh, your character's only shown up on the evening news now as a possible murderer, and you're sitting there just enjoying your pancakes.
Yeah, and here come the cops.
Bar happens to look up from their newspaper and then does a double take and immediately pulls out their cell phone.
Yeah, so, consequences. So here's a note to all you players out there. Don't put hindrances down. Think about what hindrances you're going to put on there. Because when you do that, you're telegraphing to the GM, here are my come fuck me buttons.
No, what you're saying is these are things that I want to come up in the game.
Yeah.
Because I wrote this into my character. I want this shit to come up in the game.
Right.
And
I want
then
these challenges.
As the GM, if I don't bring that up, I am failing.
Yep.
The other thing that I would highly recommend is challenge your player in the opposing fashion as well. Don't just challenge them on what they chose. Challenge them on the stuff they didn't. You've got the non-combat con man who is going to go put himself in a situation where he's selling the con. Have the big bad go, hey, that's a great idea. Let's hop on the private Learjet and go across the country. And now your character ends up privately, one-on-one, facing the big bad alone, without that team of other player characters there to support them that have all those combat skills that you decided, hey, I don't need them. They have them.
Yep. Okay, so I think...
get ready for that. That's going to be fun.
I think the next podcast topic needs to be a GM intro perspective on how to run a game and how to challenge your players. So on that note, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. We started a little late tonight. We're ending on the same amount of time frame, but late. So we're going to skip Pip and run straight into the endings. So until next time, this is Jared Savage Daddy Gunning for Jib, Dave,
Later.
and Chris saying keep rolling and stay savage.